Like let me start. So I've had a couple of tattoos that like infected, just like a little bit, just barely enough for me to be worrisome about it. I think the one on my shoulder right here, surprisingly, actually just got infected, but that's probably because it made the most contact with my shirt all the time, you know. And I think when that happened, I just let it go. Yeah. I let it heal. I let it dry. I stopped putting stuff on it. And then when I had an opportunity to come see you, I made sure that you covered it and went over it again, you know. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people go through an infected tattoo. Like they'll get a tattoo and it'll just get infected in some way, shape, or form. It might not even be the whole thing. It just be a little portion. But I've never once like freaked out. Like I think I might be completely wrong in saying this, but I think the whole tattoo infection, if it's like a small part, don't blow it out of proportion. Like it's not that big of a deal. I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, the problem is that it can spread.
Okay.
So yeah, like really, yeah, if something gets in there, and especially if it's a larger tattoo and it starts to spread and you start to have issues, like, yeah, it can get really nasty. Okay. I mean, I had a tattoo done by a very accomplished tattooer, and when I went to heal it, I used some sort of off-brand Tegaderm. It was like some super cheap stuff that some person had found. I'm not going to bring up who it was, but because I don't think it was that person's fault either. It was maybe that thing. I don't know. There's just tons of factors. I was traveling. Anyway. So I had it on my leg, and after like the first day I knew something was wrong, and it hurt so bad that I kept the Tegaderm on it because I just wanted to just like put a lid on it for a bit, so I could just tell that this thing was gonna go sour. And I hoped that somehow my plasma would heal it. I actually abandoned my normal rules, which maybe made this worse. But I would say by day 2, I was having problems walking.
Really?
My leg was getting so freaking swollen.
It got that bad.
And it was at the point where my pants weren't like even like enough. You know, like my leg had swollen so much that my pants were getting tight. So I had stuff to do, and you know, I was on a trip.
Right.
So I just kind of endured it. I walked through the pain. And that probably made it worse. I should have laid down, but I couldn't because I was busy doing stuff. I was traveling. So I think we'll skip to day 4. So day 4, I'm flying home. You know, I'm flying from another city. I got to connect in LA or whatever. So when I walked to the airport the next day, or when I was walking in the airport the following day after I'd woken up and changed the bandage again, another sheet of Tegaderm. This time I changed it because I was going on the plane and I was just trying to contain it. I knew it was a mess, clearly.
Right.
At this point, I was just kind of just hoping that something just got better. So I'm walking around the airport with this super swollen leg. I mean, you know, when you go to the nurse, you know, they ask you from like 1 to 10, like, what was your pain? Right. It was like 7 or 8, like right at the point where you can almost not hide it in your face anymore. Like I was bummed. Like it was really nonstop aching, throbbing. Like it was bad, but I just had to get home.
Yeah.
So I'm on the plane and I'm sitting next to this poor lady, and this is so embarrassing, but it's true. Like the blister on my bandage on my Tegaderm popped. So I'm wearing pants, and all of a sudden, my pants are wet. And the person next to me, and it smells bad.
I was going to ask, did it smell like crap?
Yeah, like bad. Like bad. And it just is what it is. You know, we're humans. Sometimes we have these issues.
Sure, yeah.
And this lady, she didn't speak English. And I'm like apologizing. I'm like, hey, like, I'm crazy sorry. Like, I just need to get home. Like, I know this is like a bummer. So she like switches chairs.
Sure.
So she switches chairs and moves away. And I think, okay, well, thank goodness. And I could see her speaking to her friends in like whatever language they spoke. And I was thinking, oh, this lady's just so trash talking me. And I was like, and I would do the same thing.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Absolutely. I would change seats and do the whole shebang. So she changes seats, and I'm just sitting there on the plane, just in pain. And this thing is just dripping, and it pretty much saturated the whole front of my leg, just like with wet plasma. So nasty. And I get off in LA to switch planes, and I'm just limping around the airport. I did have a change of clothes with me, so I think I even had Tegaderm. I think I suspected this might happen, actually, so I was prepared. So I had a pair of shorts, and I had more Tegaderm, and I actually had a roll. I was super prepared. I had a roll of like Bounty paper towels. So for the next flight, I wrapped it all up with Bounty, so it'd have like a drip. And of course, the blister didn't break that time, but yeah, essentially, I got home. I spent 3 days in bed.
Wow.
I didn't see a doctor because I'm a total idiot. Yeah, I didn't. And I should have, if I would have taken antibiotics on the first day. If I would have just spent $100 at some like place,
right,
I would have saved myself missing like 5 days of work. But yeah, you could ask my wife. Like I was in so much pain. I couldn't even, like, every time I got out of bed for whatever, it was like a scene from like a war film. Like it was like literally like, like the pain was just insane.
And that was just from a tattoo. That was just
from a tattoo about that big. And it just went sour. And actually the tattoo healed nice, which is crazy. It did. It healed nice. There's a little bit of fallout in a couple spots, but actually the tattoo looked good.
Yeah, just overall.
Yeah, it healed rad. So, and like I said, we did use like experimental cheap, like it wasn't Tegaderm, it was fake Tegaderm. It was like some weird brand.
Would you say that's where it went wrong?
I'm fairly certain that's where it went wrong. I think whatever that stuff was, it didn't have it wasn't built right. I swear, whoever manufactured it, they probably were just like, all right, well, Tegaderm, it's got a sheet of plastic and there's something sticky. And I swear, and I joke about like places that sell cheap tools. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same thing. Like you could buy a hammer from a place that sells cheap tools, because a hammer, if it looks like a hammer and it's got wood and like a grip and it's got the top part and it's molded and it looks like a hammer, it's basically a hammer. And I think that's what they did with this thing. They're like, well, it's plastic and it's sticky, so it's Tegaderm. So people buy it. It's plastic and it's sticky. When you roll it off the thing, you stick it on the tattoo. But I know for a fact that people at 3M did some research and they sat down. They're like, well, this is the plastic and this is the adhesive and this is going to do this, and you don't want to use this adhesive.
What about the airplane ride though? Like, you were raising altitude. Does that do anything to tattoos? I mean, you're probably not on the airplane for that long to where it's going to have an effect, but does that factor in?
Not really. Okay. I mean, the way the plane works, they try to keep it pretty stable, like air pressure and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be that big of an issue. I mean, if I was like all of a sudden dropped off on the top of Mount Everest, 29,000 feet,
right,
that would make a huge effect.
Right.
Like you'd be screwed. Yeah, you'd have a lot of issues. Yeah.
Wow.
So
is that your worst one?
Oh, there's nothing even close to that. I mean, that one was just brutal. I did have another one that got infected that was pretty painful. Mm-hmm. Had a lot of fallout. That one I waterlogged. That one was my fault.
How'd you waterlog it? Did you just take a shower?
Yeah, I was like, the tattoo was done pretty heavy, but like in a good way. And I just didn't take care of it right.
Sure.
I think I got it at a tattoo convention. I think I was just goofing off a bunch. Like any tattooer who's done a lot of conventions knows what I'm talking about. I was doing that. I was just goofing off. I was being a goof and staying up late and not sleeping. And I had this tattoo from this like good tattooer, and I just healed it wrong. Yeah. And I ended up, just having super painful experience.
That the tattoo that I told you got infected earlier, that was the first time I also used Lubriderm too. Oh, really? That's how I figured out that I can't use Lubriderm.
I would blame the Lubriderm in a way, like honestly, or the.
So I remember what I was sitting in a classroom, and I was sitting next to this guy who had a full. It was on this side. He had a full like Japanese coil fish into a octopus. It looked awesome. It looked great. And we were just talking about tattoos. I'm like, hey, I really like your piece. Where'd you get that? And yada, yada, yada. And then he basically told me like his healing process. Like he was telling me, because I had just gotten the one on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I was saying like, man, this thing's just not healing too well. And I noticed it's in the same spot. So I'm like, what did you do differently? Because obviously he's wearing a tank top too. So he probably wore a tank top throughout the entire healing process, which I should have done, But I asked him and he said, I used Lubriderm. I'm like, oh, cool. So I told me that. And after class, I went to pharmacy, grabbed a bottle of it and started using it. The very next day, I broke out in a hive. I broke out in what seemed like a cluster of pimples.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. It was just bad.
Yeah, those little like upper skin infections, that's usually how it's manifested, is a bunch of little, looks like pimples.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't not nearly as bad as yours.
Yeah.
It was just mildly inconvenient. And of course I'm going to see it and like, oh crap, that's a first. Like the little infection at the top and they got all hard and scabby, like in over a day, and it smelled bad too. But it didn't get worse, so it didn't get worse. So I wasn't too worried about it.
Right.
I think if it started to get a lot worse, if it went through it was not even 5% of the tattoo. It wasn't even 5. So if it got a little bit more than that, I might have done something about it, but it's just like, all right, no Lubriderm.